Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Food for Thought. It's December 23rd. It's a little bit after 8 o'clock. And we are 28 days away from being done with being oppressed by the man that is currently occupying the house that my people built. And before this holiday season, I wanted to, before this, it is the holiday season, I wanted to actually come on and give you some education in the sense of how race has played a part in politics in this country for basically as long as we've been here. Let's make something very clear right now. Race and politics are two different things. When you're having a conversation with somebody about race, that's not specifically supposed to be a political leaning thought. That's something that's like social and just it flows into the political realm because we've allowed it. Let's think about it. Everything we do nowadays in 2020, it has to do with some type of political leaning. If you wear a mask, if you don't wear a mask, that's a why was that a political leaning? That has nothing to do with politics. Somebody made it about politics. You understand? It's the same thing with race. They make it into politics. And in many ways, they make it into politics to serve them. And in many ways, forever, we have been that pawn. And it goes even back to Lincoln. You know, it's so funny. You often actually can, two people can look at one thing and actually have two separate opinions about the same exact thing. Hint, hint, the Bible, read the same chapter, verse. My opinion is different than your opinion because of their interpretation. Often, for instance, with black people, the Republican Party will say that we're the party of Nixon, we're the party of Lincoln, and Lincoln freed the slaves. Or they often identify with Reagan and Reaganomics and conservatism. It's people that love Lincoln, and it's the same people that love Reagan because they belong to the same party. But in some aspects, they didn't even have the same thought pattern. Do you know at this point right now, in 2020, if Richard Nixon was alive and he was a politician, he would be considered progressive because he opened up trade with China. He did. He would be more progressive to be a Republican. Although he was racist as shit too, because he used race in order to actually win the presidency. Because he made the Southern strategy and took those Dixiecrats from down south that was so upset with the, you know, the right voters' rights bills and the laws that would have been passed, and he just pushed hatred for his own political gain. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing. And a lot of people don't actually realize, like President Obama, who in 44 had to change his mind about gay marriage. He wasn't on that side. Lincoln wasn't for equality for black people. He said it. He said it in a speech in the Charleston debate, in the presidential debate. He made it known because he was because he was against slavery. They tried to push on that basically he was a nigger lover. And he had made it known at debate. I quote, I am not nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office. There is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races from living together on terms of social and political equality. That's the man that freed the slaves. Now, 7 years later, he made a speech and he stated that he was pushing for Louisiana and the other southern states that have been reconstruction and brought back to after this Grant and Davis and everybody, they gave up the fight of the Confederate, that they needed to allow these black people to vote. That was 3 days before he was assassinated, because James Wilkes Booth was listened to that speech and he said, oh no, that means niggas is gonna get citizenship. We ain't gonna have that. 3 days later, Lincoln was dead. Because, again, how did race get into politics? Because people infused it. And it's been going that way forever, like I said. Now, let's talk about Reagan. Another great father of America, and they loved, and he was a racist, and he was a homosexual hater. He blamed AIDS on homosexuals. He blames that's why the AIDS epidemic got so great in America, because he basically said it was because of their degenerate lifestyle is why this virus was in the country. And if you wasn't living that way, then you wouldn't get sick. And they didn't care to try to actually help anybody, because they believed they needed to die anyway, because they were unholy. But he played the race card when he ran for president. We know the term welfare queen. It's a term that has been used for decades to signify the lazy black woman that refuses to work and lives off the system. And I'm going to give you a word that you should know what means. And if you don't, I'm going to tell you. Propaganda. We get caught with propaganda often. When people tell us stuff and people we actually trust, and we see it on the television, or we see it in print, or we constantly are hearing it in our daily, escapades in our circles, and you hear, even from black people being lazy, don't want to get no job, living off the system, can't pull themselves up by their bootstraps. These are all dog whistles. These are play words that they use to signify black people. But the devil's in the details. The problem with y'all, and I'm going to say us, I'm not going to say me, because I read this shit. And I believe the devil's in it. When they say the devil's in the details, you need to read for yourself and dig in to learn something. When they say that black people are basically leeching off the government, let me ask you this. Do you think we would have welfare and a welfare system if it was majority minorities that was on it? Let's think about it. They just giving us that free ball? Huh? Nah. But if you see it on television, who live in the projects? Huh? Who got Section 8? Huh? Who on welfare? Huh? 60% of white people in America. 60% of the people that's on welfare are white. Uh huh. Yeah. But you wouldn't know that because that's not what they're telling you. That's what they saying it's us. We don't want no better. We want generationally. And they use that. In 78 and 79, when Reagan was running for president, he wanted to galvanize the white vote. For one, he was a Republican. Now, majority of the daggone country was really Democrats. But in order for him to galvanize a message, he had to put a message together that was going to sell to white Democrats. Now, he was already governor of California, which was somewhat, at that time, not like now, it was still a conservative state, but it was starting to lean particularly liberal in the little pockets of Los Angeles and San Francisco but in the 70s, they wasn't, flag burning liberals as much as the state is now. That's how you got he was a Republican governor. But he used Linda Taylor. Now, Linda Taylor was the quote unquote welfare queen. Now, they made it seem like she basically had all these aliases and she was using these aliases to collect a 6-figure salary from the government. They said she was making well over $150,000 a year by using these fake names and getting these welfare checks. Now, this is the dog whistles. I'm pretty sure everybody done heard dog whistle term, where they don't actually tell you what they saying, but they saying it. He would say, these people out here, these people from Chicago running around these fur coats, driving these Cadillacs, making 6-figure salary off of welfare. What that tell you? Driving Cadillac, fur coat, Chicago. Huh? 6 figures, if y'all don't know, is like when you make over $100,000 a year. That's 6 figures. Now, don't get me wrong. Linda Taylor was a criminal. Actually, welfare fraud was probably the lessest thing she's ever done. She was a con artist, a kidnapper, and she was possibly a murderer. And she was arrested dozens of times for solicitation. Dozens. But none of that made the newspaper. None of this, everything that I'm talking about didn't come to light until a book was written about her just 3 years ago. In 2017. Actually, welfare fraud was the least amount of her problems that she had in her life. For one, she was born in 1926. And she was born to a white mother and a black father in Alabama. And if you don't know, that's illegal. Period. Now, the mother left Alabama so she wouldn't get criminally prosecuted and moved with family in Tennessee. Now, you're probably sitting there like, why am I telling this daggone welfare queen story? Because it's the details. When you don't have the details, you just assume shit and you don't know the truth. Now, this girl, as you can see on the photos, she was fair-skinned and she tried to pass. And then sometimes back in the day, you could pass a little bit because, white folk is ignorant. They can't really tell about black noses and our lips and stuff like that or whatever. And they couldn't phantom that lily white woman would actually lay down with a black man. So there we go. But her family knew. Her mother's family knew that she moved in with. And she was ostracized from her own family. She was not allowed to even live in her uncle's house. She had to live in a barn. She wasn't allowed to actually attend family functions. When she was 6, she was kicked out of school. 6 years old because she was black. She never went to anything past the second grade. She had her first child when she was 14, and then she had 4 more after that. At a certain point, she left Tennessee and went to Oakland, California, where some black folk was, and tried her life. But she was uneducated. So what did she have to do? She had to make money. So she got locked up many, many times for solicitation. Now, them dudes that she was with when she got caught in the car or got caught in the daggone alleyway, they ain't never got no citation. They never got locked up. You ever notice that? The Johns don't never get caught. It's always the women. So imagine in the 50s how that was. Now, I'm not trying to make her into some fucking saint because she wasn't. But what I'm saying, her circumstances of her life put her in a way where as though she became a grifter and a con artist. And let me explain something to you. That president that a lot of these people love said she got $150,000 a year salary. She had like 60 different aliases. She was running around in fur coats, and I'll show you the picture of her in fur coat or it's over there, and this, that, and other. Do you know how much money she got from welfare that they when they investigated and they charged her? In 1974, they charged her and said she owed them $7,608.02. And when they reinvestigated to double the count, double count it came down to it came up to $8,865.67. $8,000, $150,000. Queen, broke bitch. Survival money, driving around in Cadillacs and fur. Now, it was all a ploy to galvanize white people to vote and to try to get rid of these so-called welfare queens. And to that's why when Reagan became president, he put so many reforms in place, whereas though it lowered the income amount for how much you can receive. They put all these provisions in place, so whereas though these people that were getting public assistance were getting less, and just basically made them more poor. They spent over 50, Cook County, the biggest county in Illinois, in Chicago, they spent $50,000 to prosecute her for an $8,000 crime. Not to mention the money they spent to investigate before they took her to court. Not to mention the amount of money they spent to actually house her in prison for this $8,000 quamp. Devil's in the details. Don't listen to the propaganda. This is what they do. They use race in order to get them in office. They make you look like shit. They make us not even like us. They make us talk about us. I wish they just get out and get a job. Wish you just do right. You can't be sitting around, you just lazy, this, that, and other. People take advantage of the system. More or less so. It's the majority of them, not us. But our picture is on the goddamn can. I'll give you another scenario on how they use race to actually win another election. Y'all remember George H.W. Bush? Bush 43? The older one, he came right after Ronald Reagan. Now, he was the vice president. But all he really did, he was a government little guy that just worked in the government and He was from Texas, and he got a little. So became Reagan's vice president. But his biggest thing is like he was like the director of the CIA. He wasn't really a politician. But politically wise, him being from Texas, get those votes. Reagan being, you know, governor of California, they the biggest two states in boom, electoral college. Marriage made in heaven. He wasn't a politician. But they wanted him after Reagan did his 8 years, he's usually the vice president to be in the lead. So what they did in his primary, he was going against Mike Dukakis. Now Mike Dukakis was a liberal Democrat and governor of Massachusetts. And I'm going to sit here and tell you this. If things didn't go the way they were, things would have been a lot better for people that look like me if Mike Dukakis was actually president at this time. Because he was really a progressive and he believed in actually a fair shake for a lot of people that look like us and people generally that working people. And he probably could have had like some type of health care, which they did. They had universal health care in Massachusetts, the state that he ran 30 years ago. And we still basically fighting for it now. But I digress. Explain to you like this. Bush's operatives said, look, this is what we can use against Dukakis. He had a person on a weekend furlough that wind up raping, armed robbery, and beating a woman. And he wound up leaving Massachusetts and got caught in Maryland. We're going to put his name was Willie Horton. And if you don't know anything about politics, many people heard about Willie Horton. And they said Willie Horton got a weekend furlough and he wound up committing a crime. And they blamed that and they put that around Governor Dukakis' neck. And it galvanized many, many white folk to vote against Dukakis because they said he was weak on crime. Now, as usual, as dumb as the Democrats are, they gave that to Bush because in a debate earlier, Al Gore, Al Gore, who was senator of Tennessee now, he was running for president that year, and he brought up that in the debate about getting rid of weekend furloughs. Now, many of us that's my age might not even remember, weekend furloughs was a normal thing. It wasn't just Massachusetts. 43 states in this country had weekend pass furloughs. The problem was they would do it for people that weren't even going to get out on a parole. They would be able to leave a day or two to either go to work or to just go home. And it was some type of, program to rotate people out of prison and try to, but why would you allow out Willie Horton, who was serving a life sentence for murder without parole? Why would you let him out on a weekend furlough when he was in prison for rape, armed robbery, and murder, and he had a life sentence? Yeah, the ball was dropped. But, like I said, it wasn't Dukakis. That law was put in place by the previous governor, who was a Republican, and was passed by that legislature. And if you don't know this, which the average person don't know, and they didn't know that, he didn't pass the law. Governor can't, it's just like the federal government. The legislature, the Senate, and the House, they pass the law. Only thing the governor can do is either sign it or veto it. Oh, the law was already in place before he got there. He lost the election, and you got the Iraq War, You got Iran Contra from George H.W. because he used race to basically throw the election his way. These are things that always happen no matter what. It comes back. Politics, life, everything is cyclical. When Obama was running, remember? Muslim. He not from here. Let me see his birth certificate. Race. Trump ran. Build a wall. Mexicans is rapists and killers. These immigrants. These people, they not from here. Race. And the sad part is, you always fall for it. These people always fall for it because everybody's never comfortable in the fact that you always gotta believe somebody is coming to get your shit. They're coming to take my job. When half these people that come here, they take jobs you don't even fucking want. Or people being, show me your papers when these people that's born here. And I harp on this on a lot of my episodes in the sense where as though, if you're not a Native American, y'all all immigrants. We all immigrants. Either we was born here against our will, or we swam here trying to get a new life. But soon as we get here, whoever's new, fuck them. It's not about race. It's never been about race. You make it about race. It's about class. And you know, when they figure that out, when leaders start figuring it out and stop talking, when they got people stop fighting over what race you are, and you start talking about dealing with the corporate class and dealing with the classism in this country, they kill you. They killed Dr. King 24 hours after he talked about putting the poor people's agenda, and he wasn't talking about black folk. He was saying poor people. He had meetings with blacks, Hispanics, whites, labor unions, Asian people, saying, look, we need to bind together because we are being oppressed by our own government and we not getting our proper wages. See, it wasn't no white, black, this, that, and now. Oh, hell. These people coming together. We got to go kill that nigga. 24 hours later, boom! You know when they killed Malcolm, right? It wasn't when he was a demigod, when he just said, I want to separate. Y'all been bamboozled. The white man, the devil. They let him run. They let him flow. As soon as he came back from Mecca and he saw them blue-eyed, blonde people in Mecca and they were sitting next to each other praying, he said, oh, shit. It's that white man in America. If a white man with blonde hair and blue eye is in the Holy Land at Mecca praying, then it must be the white man in America. And he got smart. And he said, fuck it. I ain't fighting with King no more. I ain't fighting with H-Rap. I don't care if you Muslim, if you Christian, you Baptist, you Jew. If you here to make sure our people get forward, I'm down with you. Boom. Dead. It's all good when you fighting amongst yourselves for your little scraps. And it's always been like that in this country. It was a time when the Italians came in and the WASP, and I'm gonna use terms that I don't use, that's derogatory. And guess what? The things I say don't reflect Plug Studio Networks. They my own opinion. And you can cut it up and try to make me seem like a racist, but I didn't make up these words. They just what they were called. You know, it was times where certain. That's why New York and a lot of places across the country is so segregated. And when these new people, that's why it was all the fight. And y'all watch Fargo. These new people will come over, and the Italians will come over, and the daggone the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon people, they don't they didn't want they couldn't even come to their hospitals because they didn't like the Italians. They, that's why Irish. White things in Chinatown, Asian people come over. Everybody was fighting for the little scraps and work. And they had their own little, quote unquote, where do you think the term ghetto came from? I know y'all think ghetto, it means it's some black folks is the hood. No, ghetto means basically people of the same ethnic group and the same class system live in one area. Look it up. Stop listening to the propaganda. They did propaganda with Hitler and the Nazis. That's why people believe that was the right thing. They do propaganda in North Korea. Shit, we do propaganda here. It's called Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, MSNBC. What, Peach, we was talking a couple weeks ago. My producer, we was talking a couple weeks ago, and you said, man, I don't remember the news being like it is now. I remember the news just used to tell you the news. It just told you what happened. It wasn't nobody's opinion. They just said 6 people got shot, or this person got robbed, or this was the Daily Double, whatever. And this is the weather, and we shooting at the sports. They just told you the facts straight down the line. Now every daggone channel, what you got? If you watch one channel, you think the world is one way. You watch another channel, you think the world's the other way. If you go on the daggone internet, you think the world is a whole nother way. Shit, there's still people here still think that the election it was a fraud. That this was a fraud. Because you in your bubble. You want confirmation instead of information. People hate me because the way I look, because the way I speak. And they ain't never met me. Or they never met anybody that looked like me. But what they see on their TV or what they look in their little chat rooms and this, that, and other, they say I'm dangerous. I'm lazy. I'm out to come try to get their blonde hair, blue-eyed bitch. I said it. You don't know me. You don't know people like me. And if you're going to actually always live in your little bubbles, you're never going to learn. You're never going to progress. The history of America always goes back in this cycle. For my soapbox tonight, I'm going to deal with that history. And I'm going to deal with that history. Hold on, just stay with me. I know I've been talking a little bit, but I'm going to just run this out for 8 minutes. Give me 8-9 minutes, and I'm going to give you some education. Today is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. The information I'm giving you now is from yesterday. Yesterday, and I'm giving you an illustration of propaganda. The man that some people, the 45th president yesterday gave a speech. And in that speech, he detailed that he felt as though Congress did not do enough in this stimulus package that has been passed by Congress, and he doesn't know if he's going to sign it. He's saying it was not enough. It's $908 billion. Now, what he proceeded to do was go through and let you know that this bill was 5,000 pages, and nobody ever reads these things, and it's 5,000 pages. That's why they make it so big. But I'm going to tell you what was in that bill. And he went by and started telling about how much money was in there for Ecuador, Peru, how much money was in there for the Kennedy Center, how much money was in for these different other things, these line items. And I was listening to his 5-minute rant about it, and I could just smile. I was so happy. Because you know what? He has this way to tell you, when he does tell you the truth, it's still slanted. Because he's playing to you. And that $3 million trillion CARES Act bill, y'all know how many pages that was? About 6,200. All y'all knew was you was getting a $1,200 check. You was getting $600 extra for unemployment. It's supposed to be some PPE money. It was some loan money for small business. What we hear and what we pay attention to whenever somebody talks to us is how it's going to affect us. What is that going to do for me? You didn't. I done have friends ask me plenty of times, but what does this mean? Or how's it going to affect me? Because we as Americans, we don't want to read the fine print. We don't want the devil in the details. That's why you get somebody else to do your taxes for you. That's why you get somebody else to daggone, get an assistant to balance your books and make your schedules and this, that, and other. You want somebody to tell you what it means to you instead of actually doing it yourself. So what he told you is actually true. But did he actually tell you that every bill is like that forever? They called it a COVID relief bill. It was a spending bill. That's the way it works. I'm a daggone congressman in Illinois. We got a plant in Illinois. That plant in Illinois is going to get that solar wind contract. Or if not, I'm blocking this bill. And now the people not going to get no money. Fucking Pat Toomey, the senator from Pennsylvania. He's retiring. Y'all don't know the rules of the Senate. It only takes one senator out of the 100 to block a bill and say, nope, we not voting on it. And you got to kiss that senator's ass and give him something so you can even vote on the bitch. I ain't saying that it's going to pass, just so you vote. He blocked the bill because what he wanted out of there. He wanted all the state they already took all the state and local money that they was going to give to the state and local, because guess what? 911 going to be getting laid off, your policemen, your firemen, because guess what? They don't have no money. They was trying to put in a bill so they can kind of give relief to them. And you know what he wanted to do? Well, we lost the election, so you put it in the new administration, but we don't want the Federal Reserve to have the ability to put an influx of money to help these local governments after January 20th. They are dictating what's going on in the next Congress now. But the devil's in the details. When I'm only getting my $300 for 11 weeks. But Trump wins. Because I'm gonna tell you what, it served his purpose. Because I'm gonna tell you like this. I can tell you a whole bunch of things. Your mama can tell you a whole bunch of things. And it sound like it's on your side. But if it's not gonna get passed, who the fuck you mad at? Whoever's in Congress now. He leaving in 28 days. But I told them I get y'all 2,000. They still only want to give y'all 600. Why the fuck you think when you got that last check, for the people that got the paper check, he had his signature on it? Because a lot of you dumb motherfuckers thought it actually came from him out of his bank account. Because he know that's how ignorant you are. Donald Trump gave me $1,200. Word. For real. Nah, by him putting his signature on actually delayed you getting that check a week or two because he was actually circumventing the law because actually only the Treasury Secretary's signature can actually be on a Treasury check, and they had to go circumvent the law to actually print his name on that. Ha ha! You don't know these things because you don't care, and you are getting screwed, and you don't care. So what he told you was true, but that served his purpose. Just like he said, he done did the most for African Americans ever. Just like he said, supposedly he gave so much money to HBCUs. Yes and no. The devil's in the details. Yes, this administration has done a lot of things for HBCUs, and the best thing they did was they wound up canceling the debt for several HBCUs in Louisiana that received over $300 million in loans after Katrina so they can survive. So they canceled that debt. But that was not him. Because guess what? He don't make laws. The senator from Louisiana pushed for that bill and got everybody in the Senate to sign in Congress to do it. So they forgave Diller's debt. They forgave Louisiana tax debt. But guess what? I did that shit. And that was in the works before he actually took office. That's another thing. That's why a lot of times, whereas though when people actually are in office, they need 2 terms because you might have some things running and they can't get complete, but you done put stuff in. That stuff was from the Obama administration. It was just put on hold. McConnell put it on hold because didn't want no wins. One last thing, and I went over my 9 minutes, but I talk a lot and I got good information. But this is important. It's a law, and this is about how things that you need to understand. That even though this man is going to be out, he's still in charge, so he's pushing for things that's going to affect us far after he's gone. If the Biden administration doesn't push back on it. And I'm telling you this, so if you are in this situation or you know somebody in this situation, you need to push back and you need to write your congressman or your senate and call them and say you ain't down for this. This is near and dear to my heart. This is about the restaurant industry. It was an article that came out yesterday in Business Insider that the Trump administration is actually pushing to do away with the 80-20 rule in restaurants. Now, I'm going to explain to you what the 80-20 rule is for restaurants. It's not like whereas though when you dating, you know, if I like 80% of that motherfucker, I can deal with the 20% that I don't like, so then we still gonna be in love. No, it's not that. It's whereas though a tip employee, bartender, busboy, wait, if you just making tip, if you making a wage where it's like $2.23 an hour or whatever, and you're a tipped employee. Now, by doing one, they're getting away from the 80-20 rule, whereas though only 20% of your work in that during the hour, it has to be separate from whatever you do tipping. So you ever notice when you in restaurants, the waitresses, you know, they might be stocking a little bit, they might be sweeping their little area, but they're not actually like running in the back and helping cook on the line and things like that, or they're not taking trash and anything out. They don't do that. They're trying to get rid of that. And by also getting rid of that is now they making it whereas though the employer can now say, you have to pull your tips. So whatever tips you get now is being pulled to the dishwasher and the front of the house. People that are receiving tips, you now have to share your tips with the back of the house. So whereas though technically, if you're a tip person, you kind of make a lot. You can make more than the minimum wage, technically. So, but they want to do whereas though we have to pull that. They already was doing it whereas though like your bus, whoever cleans out your table or whatever, that y'all split the tip. It's cool. But now they want to make it whereas though now the tips, they go into the dishwasher, they go into the line cook and everything else. So whereas though If you really cared about bringing these people up out of poverty, then you would pass a higher minimum wage than the 725. No, what you doing is protecting the corporations. So whereas though now the tips that this person is making is actually giving more money to your people that's actually cooking in the back. So now I don't have to give them a raise. So what's happening? They calculated $700 million a year. These tipped workers will lose out of their pockets, and it'll be dispersed to their co-workers. But the corporations or the actually employer that owns these restaurants and these places, now they're pocketing they not putting out more money. They still have the wages low so they can bring out more profit. Don't get this shit twisted. This is how the devil's in the details. And you don't see it. It's always the corporate overlords that's doing better. Honestly. And the crazy thing about that is 3 national restaurant industry agencies in the country are pushing for this, saying it's better for the workers. And probably like, hey, I'm going to make more. I can make tips. If I'm working and I'm cooking, now I can get tips. But you taking it from the daggone your co-workers that's only getting $2.23 an hour. You don't care. Because guess what? That causes division down here. Down at the, so whereas though now you got division and strife in the working class. They ain't hitting the penthouse. Now, it can't actually take effect for 60 days. And at this point, the Biden administration hasn't commented if they could actually, because they could put a moratorium on it until they can figure out how to dismantle it. They can put a moratorium out and back it off so it doesn't actually go effect in 60 days. But you know, they playing politics. They trying to see if they actually can come out and do the right thing. Yeah. Well, went kind of a little over than what I wanted to, but that's the information that I have for you. And if you don't actually pay attention to these things and understand that we are basically being pushed and pronged and actually believing in certain things, and it's not true. Or on the top of that, we just worried about how does it affect us. That's the American way. You know, capitalism and freedom. This whole we all are in this together shit. If we were all in this together, we wouldn't be losing 3,000 people a day because of wearing a mask and social distancing. This country came to its knees off our terrorist attack that killed 3,000 people in New York 19 years ago. And that was a tragedy. But we're having a 9/11 every day and nobody believes it's a tragedy. We done lost more people now than we did in World War II. Not a tragedy? I know 4 people that I know that done had it. I just found out a guy that I went to high school with been in the hospital for 3 weeks, 47 years old. All because he went to a Thanksgiving with his family. We believe what we want to believe and we don't listen to certain things and we don't read and don't actually try to see what's right in front of our face. I'm going to leave you with this. It was from Goody Mob. 1994. Listen to me now, believe me later on. Do what you need to keep yourself safe, and also do what you need to stay informed. And don't be shackled to believe everything that they say to you. Because what you see in front of you is just like a magician trick. You got to see what they're doing on the other hand. With that said, till next year, class dismissed.